right, Mayor Lund?
Yeah, she waved.
Okay, no, she's with us. Stewart?
Yeah, she's here.
There you go.
Okay, great. Darwin?
Present.
Okay, and board members, Sadhu and Williams are absent. Thank you.
At this point, the board will now meet in closed session for a collective bargaining update as allowed by RCW 42.30.1404B. Immediately following the closed session, the board will meet in executive session for an update on potential litigation or legal risks as allowed by RCW 42.30.1101I. The board will be in closed executive sessions for approximately 30 minutes until 8:32. Thank you. Okay, it is 8:31. I will call the regular meeting back to order. We are now moving to public hearing, the transit development plan for 2025, 2030. And Tim is going to present on the TDP.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Yeah, again, this is a public hearing, and we'll also be seeking approval of the transit development plan. That's the 2025 through 2030. Even though those are the dates, we also are required to report out on our 2024 situation. So that includes like how the organization is structured and current operations and that sort of thing. So it's also a look back to 2024. This item is a required element by state statute, and it does have some very specific elements that are required as part of the documentation. And one of those items is a public hearing, and that's why we present it to you for your approval. I would say that most of the document information are things that you already have seen in one form or fashion. Again, 2024, that's all just kind of a look back. It also incorporates the capital improvement plan that you saw a couple months ago. It does a financial report. It talks about operational changes. So none of those are particularly new. We also take the opportunity to prepare a report on progress of our actions from WTA 2040, and that's on pages 18 through 22 of the document. We kind of list through the items that we hope to accomplish as part of 2040 and report on updates to that. And I would say that we're making great progress on the implementation of WTA 2040. And then just getting to the capital items again, these are CIP items that you've seen before. The sequencing of this document is a little awkward in the sense that the budget hasn't been approved for future expenses. So we're basically identifying items that could be approved through the budget process. So it's a little out of sequence in terms of your future decisions on the budget, but that's what's required. It's required to be submitted to the state by the end of August. So we don't have that opportunity really to check in there. And then as far as operating changes, reported back on our service changes that were implemented in June of this year. That's contained within the document, as well as plan service changes. We do, just heads up, we do have one particular service change that we're planning. Should be cost neutral to improve the efficiency of routes going through the Western campus. So we've been working steadily for the last 18 months on some potential changes there, heading into some public engagement. And then this will be coming to the board sometime this fall, probably do a check-in and then have a hearing on that as well later this fall. So just stay tuned for that. Yeah, and then the financial plan, which unfortunately Shonda's not here to answer questions on that, but there is the financial plan that goes into the planning for different capital and operating expenses. I guess with that, I'll just leave it at that and entertain any questions you might have. I would say we didn't receive any public comment on the document this year, so yeah, we'll end there if you have any questions.
Before that, I'm going to actually open the public hearing on the TDP 2025 through 2030. Is there anyone online that would like to address the board? You have a maximum of 3 minutes. And I see Jamin, if you would like to unmute and speak.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak in public comment here. My name is Jamin Agosti. I'm a member of the Bellingham Transportation Commission and a board member of Walk and Roll Bellingham. I wanted to comment on the TDP, specifically one of the stewardship strategies in the TDP that talks about frequent high frequency transit in areas with land use density that supports frequent service, and speak to the excitement of Walk and Roll members about the rapid transit study. In earlier this year, nearly 100 members and Walk and Roll Bellingham and the public emailed WTA and the board and elected officials in Bellingham to advocate in favor of continuation of the rapid transit study, and hoping that WTA will really lean into more frequent service in high density areas. And we think this is a great opportunity considering the city's focus in the comprehensive plan update for more high density development in Bellingham in the future. We think high frequency transit is the best type of transit. We think it's the most equitable type of transit that creates a true alternative to car dependency for people who need it most, especially in areas of Bellingham with a high SPI index. And we think there's a great opportunity for the WTA board to give clear direction to staff here to focus on high frequency transit in dense areas over low frequency coverage types of service that doesn't provide a true viable alternative to car dependency for the people who need it the most. As we know, cost of living is a function of both housing and transportation costs, both of which are skyrocketing, and we think we have an opportunity to address at least one of those here in a really meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online that would like to address or speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, anyone in the room? There's none. We did not receive any written comment. Was that correct, Tim?
That is correct.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing and open board discussion.
I didn't mean to jump the gun.
That's okay.
Sorry. Page 20, the reference to the 2040 plan provides standards for perfect equity measures and other adjustments to account for new data sources. So that's pretty subtle compared to what's in the 2040 plan. But those measures, I think, do explicitly mention race, indigenous communities, or BIPOC communities. Priority populations. Yeah. And is that a target, or that is a target? This is the awkwardness of going from executive session to now to be able to like.
So what we have in 2040 is we define priority populations, which is what we're designing service to make sure that we're not discriminating against any particular organization or any people, particularly those that have historically been discriminated against. And that priority populations include a range of populations, including those without cars, elderly, those low-income individuals, and it also includes BIPOC community as a way of making sure that we are providing service to entities that are not, or that have historically been discriminated against.
Which I think is great, but that is exactly the target that the federal government's been going after many institutions for having that exact language, regardless of what agreements we sign.
Yeah, because what we're trying to do with 2040 is to make sure that we're equally serving the most vulnerable among us and to ensure that there are opportunities for all people to advance access to opportunity, such as things like learning, earning a living, getting medical appointments, those kinds of things with all that. So that's what we're doing. So we're not discriminating against any particular populations. We're ensuring, in fact, that we are in compliance with discrimination, anti-discrimination laws.
I have a question. Page 43, the finances.
Yeah.
A major cliff we're falling off, having a $51 million balance today, in 2030, a minus $16 million balance.
That is subject of all day in August is to.
I couldn't get by without pointing out that it's not a sustainable plan, it's a plan.
Yeah, and that's what we'll talk about in August, and there are assumptions that go into here. We've got that modeling where we'll be able to play with assumptions. We'll talk about how we're developing a strategy to approach this, and how to responsibly use reserves to make operational revenue and expenses match. And so there'll be tough decisions coming, and this highlights.
Yeah, I guess related to that, the sales tax line in that 6-year period is only going up by less than 10% over the whole period. So that, I mean, that's conservative planning, but maybe realistic in current environment.
And that is will be an agenda item at August. Again, as Tim said, we're artificially forced because we have to do this before we can have those discussions.
I'm glad you put it in.
Looks great.
So I'm happy to approve this plan because, hey, we kind of don't have a choice, but I do want to come back, and we will come back in 10 minutes or less. We're going to come to the fare box discussion, which I actually want to connect up with the bus rapid transit discussion because it has to do with, I'm rethinking some of the costs that have to do with moving to bus rapid transit and the complexity of trying to add a more efficient fare collection system may not be worth the effort. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I think none of them should stop us from just approving this plan and because it reflects the reality as is at the moment.
Did you make a motion?
I make a motion that the Deputy Board Director will approve the 2025 and 2030 transit development plan.
And I'll second.
It's on the table, and Marilyn, you have a comment?
So do we review this annually? Because I share Scott's concern about the operating financial plan. I mean, I just want to, I made this comment last year, but I just want to underscore, like to disburse $52 million in reserves over 4 years to go to a negative balance. Like, I don't know how I vote for that. Like, because that is that's an operating financial plan that it's incompatible with all the other goals. We have great lofty goals and strategies, but none of those are viable with this financial plan as spelled out in here. So the incongruency is so great. It's deeply concerning to me.
Yeah, I think the simple answer to that is this is out of sequence, but I would say that you approve this annually. There's nothing that necessarily holds you accountable to these numbers. It's simply simple math to get it to the state. But as Les mentioned, that this would be discussed and probably altered to be more realistic and to align with the board's priorities. So, it's a staff effort to put in place some numbers for the state, right, for the purpose of this without having that broader discussion. So just some assurance that it's not something that we necessarily would go with if there are changes the board needs to make to it.
So what you're saying is it's not binding.
Right, not binding. Yep.
That's helpful context, Tim. Thank you.
It's like all those comp plan agreements that are not binding.
And I think it's great for teeing up the August discussion to see what the problem set is that we have to work through. That this is what happens if we continue on.
Right.
With business as usual.
And our board is known to make course adjustments when we see problems.
Any other discussion on, there is a motion on the table to approve the WTA transit development plan. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. I'd just like to point out that County Exec Sadhu joined the meeting prior to the executive sessions, but I think at the beginning of the meeting, he was shown as absent, so.
Do you know what time?
4.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Citizen communications? Not seeing any online or in the room,
Vicky, we got none in writing, including yesterday, right? Yeah.
none in right. We'll move on to consent agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the consent agenda passes. And we are at board reports. Josh, the fair policy discussion.
Yeah, I'm actually have Audra, who's working on us with this team here, this morning. Your discussion.
All right, thanks for having us. We want to come back and revisit what we talked about 3 weeks ago. We could go to the next slide, please.
If I could just set context that this is a touch point for a fuller discussion in August when it's part and parcel of the overall financial that we're discussing. So the intent of today is just to touch on what we talked about last time and prepare for the August discussion in the context of greater financial issues. Thank you.
Thanks. We want to review what we heard. So one, we need to increase our revenue and raising fares is an acceptable option to pursue. Two, that implementing fare free is not an option we should pursue at this time. Although, Michael, I think I just heard you say something a little different earlier.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to appear to reverse course, but what I heard in the bus rapid transit study in particular, a new kind of fare collection system, which would enable very faster boarding and alighting, that was a rather large upfront expense, and I don't know about an ongoing expense. And if we wanted to really go to bus rapid transit, and if bus rapid was successful, really required a different form of fare collection system, then that changes the math on whether or not fare collection makes sense, because we could avoid a significant cost if we don't have to go to advanced fare collection. Did I understand that correctly? Because that does change the math in my mind. Not sure who I'm asking.
I would say that in order to a traditional BRT does off bus boarding on the BRT runs. Off bus pre-boarding fare collection, pre-boarding fare collection. And that could still be accomplished with what that requires installation of typically an ability to acknowledge your fare while queued up at the bus stop. And then you board the bus, and then it also combines that typically with staff on board who randomly check whether somebody's paid the fare. So the costs honestly in that sort of scenario are on the staffing side of randomly checking fares on board the vehicle. With the new technology solutions we're looking at, the cost of off-board fare collection is can be minimized, and one of the ways that we're doing that is by incorporating open payment and some other options into the mix.
Can you describe open payment?
Open payment would be bank card payments, debit, credit card. The main cost for pre-boarding fare collection is somebody converting cash payment into a paper ticket that's such that they can show that they paid. And so I think Tim and I haven't had a chance to talk a lot about what high frequent transit in dense corridors will look like. But at the moment, I think it would allow us to incorporate a mix or a hybrid model such that cash payers still would pay at the fare box, and other non-cash payers would, could be prepaid with an app or still tap at the fare box. I don't think there's a reason to do off vehicle payment, given at least in the next decade.
Okay, 'cause I thought remember a price tag around $2.5 billion for going to off bus prepayment.
And I think that's partly why we're kind of pivoting into how we're approaching, and we're not doing traditional BRT. And so we're looking at some options there. So I think we have a window of probably a decade where we can do something and then pivot, before we would need to even consider an alternative, an off-board, a pre-boarding fare.
I guess here's where I'm going. If the reason to maintain fare collection is that it is a reliable and reasonable form of revenue, small as it is. But if collecting that revenue has these increasing costs, it makes less and less sense to retain it as a revenue strategy. What you're saying is that even if we try to go to these advanced methods, it will still be a reasonable and positive source of revenue.
Well, even if the $2 million capital investment, the fare collection revenue, especially if you amortize that 2 million over even 5 years, your fare revenue well exceeds the costs there. So, we're talking about getting to fare revenues around in the $3 million area. And so that puts it well over what capital costs.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to revisit that in light of additional possible fare collection costs.
I think that 2.5 million would have to be some kind of platform boarding. And as BRTs are getting more popular, the price tag and the technology of those things is coming down. There's all kinds of different readers and pre-validating things that you can do that are much less expensive than what you're talking about.
Just to set context for August, we're talking about raising net revenue, and that's fare increases. So there's tough decisions that are coming as we're looking at, how do we get our operating revenue and our operating expenses in line? We're looking at the revenue side and the expense side. And we haven't raised fares in a long, long time, but that comes with difficult decisions on that. And in August, we have a modeling system where we can input and see what those do and how those affect things. But I don't want to lose track of the fact that we would be telling people we are raising fares
in order to get to kind of those revenue numbers. Right now, we're collecting about 1.7 million in revenue off of about 500,000 in expenses.
I guess to that discussion, if you would, double it to $2, it still costs you $500,000 to collect it, but you'd collect another 1.7 million roughly. Is that a fair statement?
It's pretty close. Yeah.
It would just depend on how many people shift away.
For sure, yeah, but $2 is probably still a good deal.
Maryland?
I just wanted to clarify, did I hear a number of a billion potentially for a capital investment to collect fares for pre-boarding?
No, it was a million, I think, 2.7 million. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2.5 million is what I remember. Sorry.
We'll correct the record, it's a million.
I was gonna say that'll take us 500 years to break even.
It does change the math significantly.
Okay.
All right, if we could go to the next slide, please. So the two options that we're modeling out is option 3, which is where riders basically do what they do now. They choose between period passes or stored value. There's fare capping daily and monthly, but that only applies to trips with stored value.
Stored value is a pass, right? So you're buying something and you're storing your
You
value.
put $20 on your card, and every time you tap, it costs $1. When you get to $3 that day, the rest of your rides that day are free.
It's like a prepaid gift card.
Yep, that's right, with fare capping. In option 3, our paratransit pass-on file system would stay in place where people pay $13 a month and they can ride as many times as they want, and they don't have to carry a pass around with them. It's in our back system. It would there's a lot of product variety right now, so it would keep that product variety, but it also keeps a lot of the complexity.
And if you want, we would then present a couple of options under this option where we keep fares the same with a few adjustments, increase fares, so maybe that goes from 13 to $1.15 or whatever, or $1 to $2, so we could present some options of how, some options of option 3 of how we could do different fare prices, but still keeping essentially the same fare model that we have today.
Option 4, all of the trips are pay as you go. So there's no period passes to manage, riders don't overpay, and fare is better aligned with actual usage. So the fare capping that we're proposing would be integrated between fixed route and paratransit. So riders are encouraged to take the ride that's right for them, and it's still fare caps, while it protects our revenue through those automated caps.
Can you explain when you say fare capped, what is that?
Right, so right now we have free on fixed route, and people who are paratransit eligible ride fixed route for free. And that number is increasing. And so if there was a combined fare cap, rather than having to buy a paratransit pass and a fixed route pass, or utilizing the free on fixed route model, what they would do is there would be a combined fare cap. So maybe some of their trips are paratransit, some are fixed route, and it would cap out at a certain point a day. So people wouldn't just continue to take fixed route or take paratransit because that's what they're eligible for. They would be incentivized in a few different ways, through lower fare, through faster transit to take fixed route when they could.
So the caps apply both daily and monthly are what we're proposing. So you would only pay up to a certain dollar amount during that day, no matter which how many trips you pay. So if you say, hypothetically, we're still at $1 and cap was at, our current cap is at $3. So after you hit $3 today, the rest of your trips that day are not charged. And then we have a monthly cap today. And so we're to be modeling something very similar to that, where our current monthly cap is at $30. And so today, if you ride if you have enough fare cap days, it gets complicated because we only count the money that you're actually charged. So you can ride a lot of days on 1 day and 2 days and 3 days, but after enough $3 days match up, you get to $30. So if you rode excessively for 10 days straight, you would be capped out after 10 days of $3 fare caps at the $30 monthly cap. So the idea there with fare capping is really to make it equitable, because right now, the people that benefit the most are those that can buy a period pass. And those that are paying trip to trip financially, that can invest in upfront in the cost of the period pass, are losing out on the discounts that are available to them, except through our stored value program, which we have to do as well, which is
just increasing in popularity. So we were at just 2 or 3%. Year before last, this last year, we were at 11%. We're on track to be at 20% stored value this year. So rather than flunking out $30 at a time, people are starting to catch on to the fact that they can just put stored value on their card. And then if they ride a little that month, they wouldn't need as much, but that they're protected by the fare capping. This option 4 would protect both modes, fixed route and paratransit, that you could fare cap whichever mode you ride.
And like the other one, we would present sub options at different rates that you could then charge. So we would propose different per trip amounts for the different modes, as well as different a couple of different fare cap limits that you guys could review and understand both the impacts to the riders and the revenue impacts as well.
Overall, option 4 is a much simpler system. So there's really just very few fare products. It's pay as you go. But it gives people more ways to pay, which is a much more progressive trend, where you don't have to pick the right product in advance. You can just pay as you go, but it protects us with revenue and it protects the rider with not overpaying.
That's where I wanted to go, Audra. Thank you for that. I'd like to know on this, comparison, which of these is the most friction-free for users, and also which is the least effortful for us? Okay, so option 4 wins in the sense that, and is it least friction-free for those who have means and a predictable life? Is it also less friction for those who have low income and maybe figuring out their finances day to day?
So we have about a little less than 40% of our riders that get some kind of assistance with their transit fare. So they're used to someone purchasing a pass for them. It's good for 30 days. This would still protect them, because sometimes those rides are tied to whether they have need that month. So sometimes somebody's buying their pass for them. Sometimes they're having to put their own money on their card. this would even that out. So people could still expect to pay no more than a certain amount per month, whether it was coming out of their own pocket or whether it was being paid for by somebody else.
Finally, which of these would require all users to have technology, like using a phone or maybe just a physical card? So again, which of these is better for the user experience in terms of maybe people who don't have smartphones, things like that?
I would say they're equal because in both of these options, we're still gonna be collecting cash. And when you're paying cash, there's not a cap. So cash users are gonna pay the most. But both options, you can still use your phone, you can still use a card. So I'd say equal. But
And how does this affect the Western contracts?
In both options, I would say we are gonna present some options that include eliminating student fare. And so it wouldn't be a price discount for student fare.
Well, Western, there's still student fare, or are you saying no student discount?
No student discount at all, so whether it's for any students, youth continue to ride free, those 18 and under would continue to ride free. But those 19 and over who historically might have been considered a student because they're attending I think we define as a brick and mortar school within the community, would no longer have a fare category, is one of the options that we're gonna be presenting in August. Even if we kept a student category and set a rate for that as well, either option would allow us to, I think, reimagine the Western contract and perhaps bring its revenue in line with the fare policy. And I think we have some options there. Option 4, Western currently pays per tap at a significantly discounted rate, even below our listed student rate, and so.
well, based on per tap, they're
Yeah.
paying a flat fee last year.
Yeah, they're paying a flat fee this year, yeah, so.
If I may, because
Yeah.
we're going over, so the answer to your question is, it will affect.
Well, yeah. And that's a significant portion of the revenue.
In August, we'll come back, this was just a touch point so that we didn't lose track over 60 days on it, and so we'll come back and model 3 and 4, and have discussions
Great.
on that.
Unless you guys have a significant preference on 3 or 4, just as someone who has to model all of them.
I want to see the comparison, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. We go to the next slide. This is just the timeline of what's coming up. So we're gonna meet back on the 7th. We wanted to take just a few seconds. Are there any questions or very specific things you want to be sure that we include in modeling for next time?
How many different price points do you think you will be modeling?
At the moment, I've penciled out 3 per option, but each one of those would have kind of a very close to our current fare option, so kind of like almost a revenue neutral option with some cleanup, and then 2 options that increase our net revenue.
I guess I'd like to see what percent of the fare we collect is Western money. Because I think that's
Related to that, how much are the Western folks in the loop about the planned revenue increase?
They are, that's why when we were negotiating that, they wanted, Western was hopeful for 5 years. We said we can only do what we executed through September of next year because of these changes. So we're gonna need to talk what that, how that affects them. So they're aware.
But they're not in the room under.
They will be, yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah,
we have
obviously.
somebody from Western here today.
Yeah.
About 1/3 of the revenue and about 40% of the rides. So we're a little off.
Our goal would be to get some guidance in August, not necessarily a firm decision, but some guidance as to a preferred option. And then we can vigorously engage with a number of stakeholders, including Western, during August and September ahead of a public hearing. So we can answer their questions and gather their feedback and incorporate that into a proposed fare rates and rules, which you guys would eventually adopt this fall.
Thank you. Look forward to talking to you again in a few weeks.
Thank you for the presentation. Any other business that needs to be brought before the board? Seeing none, the announcements? I just want to thank WTA for partnering again with Lions Camp Horizon. Last week, we took 2 field trips from camp to one to Semiahmoo, and then on Thursday to Station 49, and it was just a very joyful group that got off the bus after both events, and staff was great, and we will do it again the first week of August. And again, just really appreciative of the cooperation and the partnership between our groups. It's awesome. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you.